Making Europe's farming more sustainable, equitable, environmentally friendly, and competitive while ensuring quality and fair prices for consumers. The goals of the new Common Agricultural Policy. But is the reform enough to achieve those objectives? And will it really be money well spent? Hello and welcome to People First, the EPP Group's monthly program on issues with impact on people like you. Joining us to answer some of your questions is Mariette McGuinness. She's a member of the European Parliament's Agriculture and Rural Development Committee. You're also a member of the EPP Group, and this must have been, as a chief architect behind this reform here in the Parliament, it must have been a real balance between farmers, between consumers and environmentalists.
Well, it was a balance and a battle and a compromise, because at the end of the day what we had to do was to try and get value for money. We had to ensure the budget, we had to listen to the interests of farmers and consumers and the agri-food sector and the environmental lobby. It isn't easy, but the only way you make effective policy is to listen to all the stakeholders. Now, there's a bit of history here to the Common Agricultural Policy. It's been Europe's longest, most established policy. You and I, when we go shopping, take for granted that somebody somewhere in rain or snow will milk cows, will harvest corn so that you and I eat. We rarely think about how food is produced. What we had to do in the Parliament was say to the public, we need taxpayer support to produce food, because farm incomes are way below the average of other sectors. And you and I do not pay the full price for food. These public goods, the environment that you've mentioned, water quality, all of these issues are factored into food, but we don't pay the full value for food. So come in the Common Agricultural Policy.
Exactly. And let's take a look at more detail on this with our report before we go to the viewer questions.
The reform reduces the budget of the Common Agricultural Policy, though it remains the largest part of the European Union's 2014 to 2020 spending plan, taking up just under 40% of the funding, or about 50 billion euros a year. Among the key reforms effective January 2015, farmers in new member states are to rise toward convergence with those in older member states. There's also a so-called greening payment, where 30% of the spending is earmarked for sustainable farming. The reform favors smaller farmers and cuts payments for larger farms. Individual payments above 150,000 euros will be subject to a mandatory 5% cut, and member states have the option to impose an even larger cut. Younger farmers, those no more than 40 years of age, would receive additional payments. A small farmers scheme gives member states the option to pay them up to 1,250 euros. Along with food security, the cap is aimed at ensuring competitive prices. Milk quotas are to expire in 2015 and sugar quotas in 2017, giving additional time for that sector to adjust.
So, Mariette, let's go first to one of our first questions, which is from a person from one of the new member states asking about convergence that we had in the report.
Hello, my name is Tomáš Pilsek and I'm from Czech Republic, and I would like to know how the European Parliament can support the Czech agriculture and Czech farmers.
Okay, now what he did mean when I talked to him a little bit more was that idea of convergence.
Okay, let's explain that, because I think the word convergence, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Look, at the moment we have based payments to farmers on historic production levels, but we have new member states who've come in and we made some commitments to them, but actually they're not getting as much support as farmers in the older member states. Right. So real pressure to try and balance the money between member states, but also within member states, but I'll come to that in a moment. So what I would say to friends and colleagues in new member states, there will be more support going from the central budget to those countries that are below the average of payments.
Will they come up exactly by par?
No, they don't come up exactly by par. Big
Right.
problem. You alluded to it in your report. The first time in the history of the European Union that the budget generally is cut for the next 7 years, and agriculture is taking a hit as well.
Right.
So there's a cut in the budget. We're asking farmers, you've reported it, to do more in terms of delivery on these public goods I've talked about, and there's more farmers. So huge challenges, less money, but I can say to your question, yes, the new member states will see some increase in their payments. Will they be happy? I don't think so. I think they'll still be battling with us and saying this is not entirely fair or equitable, and those are challenges we're going to have to deal with in the future.
Okay, and here's another key issue. How does this cap make farming more environmentally friendly. We have a question from somebody from a country that made slow food famous.
Hi, I'm Francesco and I come from Italy, and I want to know how this reform will make farming greener.
Well, we saw that 30% of the cap, right, is supposed to go for the greening of farming.
Okay, before you even say that, lots of European policy demands that farmers deliver more for the environment. So we've got environmental legislation around water, all sorts of things. But in the Common Agriculture Policy in particular, big change this time around. For the first time, we are saying that direct supports to farmers are linked to delivering for the environment. And 30% of payments are linked. It's a big proportion of the amount of money that a farmer will get. Right. So what does it mean? For tillage farmers, those who grow crops, they will have to leave part of their farm, 5% initially, rising possibly to 7%, in what we call ecological focus areas.
Isn't that just set aside? Wait a minute, isn't that just set aside?
No,
like
you
we've had
could
for
call
years?
it that. I wouldn't be a fan of set aside, but I understand the need for biodiversity, space for nature. I'm a little bit concerned about this proposal because we're not sure it will work. So we're starting at 5%. Okay. It's quite a significant part of the land. And you know, you as a consumer might say to me, this could push up the price of food.
Sure.
So again, we're trying to balance all the interests here. But to answer your question, and the question very clearly, yes, the Common Agriculture Policy in first pillar payments is now reoriented towards the environment, towards greening.
Okay, let's move to our next question on youth and young farmers.
Hello, my name is Andrea. I come from Spain. How will this reform help young farmers?
Okay, plain and simple. How does that work?
Very easy answer. Look, the Parliament was with the Commission on this one. We know there's an ageing population in farming. We know that there's a lot of youth unemployment.
So you want to get youth to come to the farms.
We know that there's a need to grow more food globally. We want young people to look to agriculture as a career opportunity. In the past, there was no respect for farming. Let's be very clear.
Well, a lot of youth would just leave for the city.
But we're now understanding that actually food is fundamental to society and that young people have a huge amount to deliver with new ideas. So we're saying young farmers, those who are up to 40 years of age, will receive a top-up payment of 25% on the supports they get if they were just above 40 years of age. So what we're saying, there's a direct incentive to young people to get active in farming.
Okay, and then a bit related to that is a question of small farming. Let's listen to this one.
Hallo, mein Name ist Marc Palomo aus Deutschland und ich möchte wissen, ob diese neue Regelung wirklich hilfreich ist für die kleinen Bauern und der Qualität des Essens dienlich ist.
So how do you make sure that those small farmers get the help they need?
There's two questions there, actually. We talk about the small farmers first. Small farmers can be intensive farmers, and sometimes they don't need help. So let's be very careful not to pigeonhole size. There are many small farmers, and especially in new member states, but in my own member state of Ireland, who need support. They will get some from direct payments that we've talked about reforming and the greening, but they will also get support and much needed support in rural development measures, so we can have targeted agri-environment schemes.
Okay, and then final question from an outsider looking in, an American who came here with curiosity to find out more about small farming because she's near a lot of small farms.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Madeline Waltman. I'm from Snyder County, Pennsylvania, in a small town called Selinsgrove. There's a lot of farming around there. So my question is, what is the definition of a small farmer? What is your cutoff point on how much agriculture they're dealing with?
Well, that's a pretty fair question, but also a related question, how do we get the results from the cap that we want?
Okay, well look, sometimes people say, what's a small farmer? Is it, meter high or 2 meters high? So let's not go into definitions. The key question here for me is we want to target support to active farmers, whether they're small, medium or large. We wanted to target those who are managing the countryside, producing food, who stay in their communities.
Who are really farming and
we're not
talking about golf courses.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
This is a big part of our shift in these reforms. There are cases where money in the past went to people who were not farming.
Airports, golf courses.
We cannot have that, and we've
That's
said it
now.
very clearly in the reforms. In terms of support for small farmers, as I said, will come from both parts of the policy, and that's how it should be. And those small farmers can develop niche products which Pillar 2 Rural Development can support. But absolutely fundamental to this is that we ensure, by checking, that the money goes to where we politically intend it to go, to active farmers, those who are out there, the people I talked about, who we do not see when we collect the milk or do not even consider when we buy bread. But without them, we would be in a particularly hungry place today. So that's a fundamental message.
Okay, and last question, this is my question, and I hear this from a lot of people here in this parliament and outside, is why spend about 50 billion euros a year on a sector that is not a future-leaning sector? Why not spend more on R&D?
You are so wrong. I am sorry.
Okay,
You are so wrong. You're telling me that the future is not food, that food is not the future? You haven't seen the statistics. Food and food delivered sustainably is the biggest challenge mankind faces. So maybe the people in this parliament don't get out often enough and are not connecting with the grassroots. And they don't understand that the budget for agriculture delivers for them. It delivers for villages, for towns, for cities. It delivers jobs. It delivers green growth. It delivers food. It stops hunger. Is this not the future? My God, they need to get out more often.
Marianne McGuinness, thanks so much for joining us. You've been in the center of this this hurricane, trying to decide this cap reform.
Absolutely. Maybe I need to get out more often.
Well, now you have a chance, perhaps, now that we're done.
Thank you.
That's all the time we got for now. Thanks very much for joining us on People First. Find out more about the activities of the largest political force in Parliament by checking eppgroup.eu. Until next time, thanks for watching.